Welcome to Fall, Rise, Give, a space where we invite you to dig into the real cause of your suffering, looking at opportunities for growth with a change in your beliefs, thoughts, and actions so you can be your true self and be inspired. Join us as we explore life's ups and downs and navigate the twists and turns, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of giving back. Whether you're looking for a change, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for candid conversations, raw emotions, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back on life's extraordinary journey. Welcome to another edition of Fall, Rise, Give. Turn struggles into opportunities by being your true self and help others. How you doing? I'm Bartender Bob. With me, of course, is my co-host Kumar, and we've got a special guest today, Mike. Mike, all the way from across the pond. I don't know why they call it the pond, though. Do you, Mike?
No idea. It's a big pond, isn't it? It's a big pond. I was just saying to Kumar off air, I'm located in a place called Anglesey, which is just off the north coast of Wales, just across the sea from Ireland, if you get some sort of area of where that might be.
Well, and Kumar was just in Ireland.
Yeah, would you say?
Yeah, small world.
Wouldn't want to paint it, though, that's for sure. So, Mike, tell us, who's Mike Longthorn?
Yeah, well, I guess, who am I? It's a great question to start, isn't it? And when you invited me on this podcast and the slight adversity, and I say slight, adversity that I've kind of been through, I reflected on it and I wondered how adverse it's been. And I guess you've only experienced the life we've only experienced. And, you know, I kind of started a business in 2008, which was in fashion. I held on to that business until about 2019 and it went under. And in that period, I went through a divorce as well. And after when I lost the business, I lost the equity in my house, kind of had to start over again. And there was that real feeling of, what do I do? Do I want to dive straight back into an industry, what is about making money and really sort of kind of feeding the ego part of myself? Or do I want to give back? I've not got kids. And after my divorce, about 3 or 4 years later, I met my current partner and she was a teacher and her friends consequently were teachers. And I knew other people, friends of hers that I got to know, which were all contributing to society. And before my business went under, I felt this almost longing to be needing to do something which was more giving, more contributing. And what I was doing felt very misaligned. It felt like a lie. So when my business went under, that was an opportunity to rethink where I wanted to go. And over the next year or so, and just kind of the start of COVID, I kind of saw that really my calling was probably to study to be a counsellor. And that was a 4-year journey, which I went on and I did. And it was 6 months to the end of that journey of becoming a counsellor that I became alcohol free. Now, again, that's part of the alignment piece as well, because you're probably aware, but that whole counselling psychotherapy study, it's kind of 50% studying the subject and the basis of therapy. And it's 50% studying self and understanding self and how we kind of are within ourselves and how we react in that in the world. So there's a real glaring obvious fact for me as I studied, come to the end, that this alcohol thing was getting in the way. So come the end of the course, well, just before the end of the course, I was listening to a podcast with Rangan Chatterjee and he had Andy Ramage on, who later became my coach in teaching me alcohol-free performance coaching. I got in touch with him, and as soon as I'd finished my counselling course at uni, I jumped straight on to his diploma. And I felt that was a place, having seen the benefits of alcohol-free in my life and how it opened so many more things, I'd become so much more focused in my goals, what I wanted to do. I wanted to give back. So I guess my story is not, you know, I've been listening to plenty of your podcasts. It's kind of like probably a little bit more vanilla, but it's my experience. And for me, it was a tough old road, and I learned some things. But I guess the passion to do what I do in alcohol free is to kind of allow other people to understand what the world is like without that one or two drinks or the occasional binge at the weekend, what it's like to put that out of your life altogether.
Before the podcast, we were talking with Mike about clarity and alignment. And at one level, alcohol is a poison. It also has not only physical, but spiritual negativity that comes with a binge type of a drinking that is hard to place. And again, no judgment against people who drink normally. It is a very good thing for socialization, and it's a tool. It's for most people, it's a great thing to be able to do. For a lot of us, it gets in the way of living what I call a spiritually aligned life. And I think that's where you're getting, even though you were not a hardcore alcoholic, you were still aligned and still missing some of the alignment on what you wanted to do and to give back. I think we need to be at a higher consciousness level. And that consciousness is kind of what you're talking about with wanting to be able to be more of service to others. One of the things that I learned, I've known it for a while, but I kind of got a reminder of this, Bob, yesterday as well, is trust God, whatever God of higher power that you choose, clean house, work on yourself, basically, and get rid of any emotional toxins and physical toxins or whatever you want to call it. And then third, help others. And that helping others, being of service to others, that's where the joy, that's where the happiness, that's where the enlightenment comes through. And I think that's what drove you. And it's, how has that been since you've been able to do this for the last, some time? And how has that been able to transpire in your life? Are you feeling a lot more happier? Are you feeling a lot more joyous? Obviously, there's challenges all the way through, but
yeah, it's been 14 months. I probably should have made a note of the days, but it was kind of January of 2024 when I started the alcohol-free journey. And I guess the big challenge for me and what my social media kind of sort of talks more about is the challenge of me being an introvert and having to go to these socials. So that was always a trigger for me. It felt like I had to have that alcohol performance enhancer at a party, at a social, to be able to really sort of connect with people. So I went through a period of putting myself out there in the January, the February, the March, the April of that last year, and coming back and feeling like a real wallflower at parties and not being able to get involved because everybody's on this different level. But I knew, this consistent thing would pay off. And the funny thing, over time, I started to be able to bring that extroverted part of myself out, which alcohol was always doing in that environment. But conversely, when that happened, there's a real confidence boost comes with that, to realize that I could be in these social situations. I could be around my mates who are drinking, because I'm still the only one on this journey, really, and still enjoy it, and then still enjoy it, but get up the next day feeling really fresh and ready for a great day and enjoying the things in the morning. And the funny thing is, you touched on that spiritual element. And I think there's absolutely a truth in that. And I tried to get into meditating the year before, still drinking, and it was so patchy. Last year, I was about 90% of the time. So 9 out of 10 days, I would say, sometimes a bit more, sometimes 25, 26, 27 days, sometimes a full month, constantly having that 10-minute routine in the morning and loving it and really getting into it and really feeling the benefits of it as well. And it's so subtle that it does require consistency and an almost kind of a blind faith that there's going to be benefits from that. But without actually taking that break from alcohol, I don't think I'd have been able to start meditating. I don't think I'd be able to have a better sleep routine. So it's not so much the alcohol that's the problem. It's when you remove it, it's the benefits that it brings into your life, all the space it opens, all the time it opens. Yeah, so there's that piece. And yeah, certainly the alignment, which you touched on as well. There's been a lot of things in my life that that alignment piece has kind of been sort of to and fro. And there's a real sort of obvious one in my kind of probably late 20s. I got back into sport and exercise and started doing a lot of road biking. But I was still going out partying on the weekend and taking drugs. And it was like, that's a serious misalignment. And trying to do these endurance events and then still sort of, doing recreational drugs occasionally. And it's like, so then I kind of knocked that on the head in the mid-30s. And I still have this thing with alcohol and doing what I do. Obviously, I wouldn't, do an alcohol-free performance coach. There's no way that holds me more accountable than ever. But at the same time, I'm not saying that I'll never have another drink again. And I'm not anti-alcohol. I don't want to put that pressure on myself. It's interesting, but I'd say alcohol-free. And I choose not to drink. But it's interesting what you were saying off air, Kumar, about when you was in Ireland recently. And I could really relate to that because it might happen to me. It might happen. And I might fancy a drink one time. I'm not putting myself under that pressure, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I quit smoking when I turned 39. On my 39th birthday, I quit smoking cigarettes. And I actually saved packs of cigarettes around the house when I quit. And then I used a nut and a bolt, and I used that just to keep my fingers busy. And when I turned 40, I threw away some of the cigarettes. When I turned 45, I threw away the rest of them. And, I said I quit smoking, but one time during the course of between then and now, I'm 56 now, in 17 years, I woke up with a pack of cigarettes in my pocket, one time out of 17 years. So,
a blip.
Did I quit? Yes, I quit. Did I stay quit? Sure. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things. It's like you guys dealing with it's day by day, and every day is a new day and a new challenge when it comes to stuff like that. I want to turn our attention back a little bit to what you talked about earlier, Mike, with the failed business and failed marriage. I had a failed marriage as well, and I've had a failed business, and has Kumar. So, I mean, we've all dealt with it. What have you learned from that experience of losing and failing in that part of your life?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because that failure it turned out to be one of the greatest gifts that I've had. I was living in a place in the Midlands called Stamford at the time. It was a really picturesque market town, probably quite upmarket as well. I was driving a brand new A5 S-Line, an Audi A5, and I'd had quite a few new cars on contract hire, and image and ego, and that was all the thing. And I felt like things were going well, and it was nice to be driving a nice car, and all that was important to me. But I remember when it got towed away, when my business went down, and it's contract hire, so the contract hire company came and took it away. And instead of feeling upset, and my mother gave me her 10-year-old car, and instead of feeling upset, I just felt free. I felt relieved. It was strange. It was a really strange feeling. And it was the gift was that I never needed all that material stuff. And it was a real big lesson to understand. And as I kind of come out the other side and have had little bits of success, I'm not as inclined to throw money at things that aren't really that important to me. So I think a really big gift, and I guess if you guys have been through that, I have a feeling you might understand.
You become more aware of things that are really important. I don't want to call it toys because they're necessities. I don't think cars and houses and all these things, they're important necessities. And at some point they become egomaniacal, right? And they become the ego, and that takes over. You start identifying with where you live, what kind of car you drive, all of that stuff. And at the true nature of it, you're this human being that has this gifts to share to the world, and kindness and compassion and love in a way to be able to help and be kind. That's much more real. And that was a smaller piece. The ego was a bigger piece. And as all of a sudden the money goes away, the ego becomes smaller because you're just humble. And then the loving kindness, compassionate side finds more room. And I think that's the separation happens a lot more when it's ego identifying with the self. Whereas when you go in and you're identifying with humility and kindness, you're like, I'm the same as everybody else. I may not have a lot of money, but I've got my energy. I want to be able to transmute that energy and to be able to help others. And that's the path that we get on by falling on our face and then jumping back up. And so that's why I like kind of where Bob and I have gone through some rough times. And, the show is called Fall, Rise, Give. And we want to be able to rise and then be able to give back to the society. And when the ego is there, it stops us from doing that.
Yeah. And did you find some peace within that as well, Kumar? Because that was certainly my experience. There was an amount of peace that happened.
Yeah, there is a level of serenity, the freedom, like you said, of I don't necessarily need the wealth to be happy. I fell on my face pretty hard, and I was just revisiting it. I was writing a book of the chapter of the book. Even at the moment of being in debt of hundreds of thousands of dollars, having the bankruptcy and all of those things, I was still able to take care of myself physically. I was still be able to live in a home, still had food on my table. I didn't have a lot of wealth, but I had a lot of necessities still met somehow. I was taken care of. And that's kind of the thing, is like, you don't need all the other stuff to take care of yourself. We live in Western society, and by and large, we have resources that through family, like your relative giving you their used car, or me with my mother, or my family coming together here and there, we're able to find and put together the pieces. And then the journey back, it took years to build a sense of career and a sense of stability at a financial level, but to be able to get back to a level that I don't necessarily need it now. I want to have certain things. I want to manifest certain things, but I am perfectly okay with having very little. And that's the joy. That's the part of the peace that you're talking about. Serenity of like, I don't need a lot. I can live out of a suitcase. There's a great book. You probably heard of it. Bob, you heard me talk about it probably before, called Siddhartha. Herman Hesse wrote it. And in the book, it becomes kind of like Siddhartha was a name for Buddha. And Herman Hesse basically wrote this fiction book exemplifying the life of Buddha. And in it, he says, I can think, I can solve most of my problems by thinking. I can wait through overcoming my problems just by time will solve a lot of the issues. And I can fast. I don't need a lot of food. And the food he's talking about is not just food on the table. It's all the other stuff. And so, we can think, we can wait, we can fast. And so we don't need a lot to live on. But I think what's up here between the two ears, that's kind of the key to living a more serene, peaceful life. And the less stuff that you have, the more peace that you get. And that's the thing.
Stuff clouds your memory and clouds your thoughts for sure. Mike, one of the things you mentioned, about the car, and Kumar brought it up as well. Seems like you accept your gifts, and that's I think that's a big part of all of our lives that we're just missing out on, is not seeing the gifts and not accepting them. Sometimes people don't see the gifts when they're handed to you.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it's just, having that awareness that gift is there and that you're being presented with it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that probably gets down to sort of being grateful about the things that we have in our lives. And there's been probably a real shift of, what I have at the minute and the gratitude for that I have, whether that's kind of the people in my life, most important, or the things that help me get through life being a bit more comfortable. There's definitely that gratitude bit, and thankful for, the everyday gifts. And it's interesting because, I've got into journaling a little bit as well since I stopped drinking. And I have this, journal, this kind of, one of the questions is about kind of what can you be grateful for the day? And sometimes it's the smallest of things, like my morning coffee, which I really love now. Which kind of makes me laugh a little bit because it's the only psychoactive that I'm staying on to. I'm kind of keeping hold of. Great. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Good stuff. Those little things that are really nice, the peace in the morning as well, and getting up at a time when I've got that time to myself as well.
And no headaches to go with it. What strategies, Mike, have you used, or some of the tools that you've used to become most effective in staying on your, on the path that you're going down now?
Some tools that I've used, I guess, celebrating the wins. So, and I think we've touched on this as well about Bobby's story with the smoking, and Kumar, maybe a sort of blip on the alcohol-free journey that you've been on. And I guess celebrating those wins and, not being too focused on perfection. Things don't have to be perfect. The people have these situations where they've been alcohol-free and they've done 30, 60, 100, 300 days, 500 days, and they might have a drink and then it's almost as though they feel like they've got to start again from day one. I don't believe that. And I tell my clients that it's not about that. It's a blip. Out of those 30 days, if you've had a drink, then actually we look back on that last 30 days. When is it that you've had 30 days alcohol-free before? So I kind of remind myself of those same principles of celebrating the wins, finding out what went well on the wins. And if I have some things where I slip up, then what happened, and it might not be on the alcohol-free thing. I'm doing this thing at the moment with my partner and it's a pretty intense, it's not a diet, it's a health lifestyle thing. And there's no sugar involved for 75 days. And yesterday, for some reason, I don't know, I was having a bad day and I dived into a box of chocolates. I ate half a box of chocolates. And it's one day, isn't it? It's one day. The rest of the time, it's not going to kill me. It is a challenge. I confessed because I felt I'd let my partner down a bit, but we had a laugh about it. And it's that not holding on to being perfect, because by doing that, I think we can hold ourselves back so much.
Are those some of the strategies that you share with your clients as well to help them?
Yeah, 100%. So it's a really good question. And working with my clients, I guess this is where I kind of put my counseling experience as well as coaching experience in because when I trained in counseling, it was a person-centered theory, which means it's about the client that I'm working with. It's about their frame of reference. So it's really about understanding their life and what their life looks like. And as I've alluded to before, because we've all had different lives and we've all had different experiences, our world is different and everybody's truth is slightly different. So it's having that space to understand what the client's story is, and then through some motivational interviewing, really kind of finding out what the perceived benefits to them are for drinking, what the consequences are, what they'd miss, putting that together and really going through the thoughts and feelings behind all these reasons. And then understanding that actually the perceived consequences, they're often a negative anyway, because somebody might think the perceived benefits are that it helps them sleep or it lowers their anxiety. And actually, when you dig a bit deeper, does it help you sleep? Well, actually, I wake up at 3 a.m. feeling a little bit sort of wired. Yeah, and does it calm the anxiety? Because actually, how do you feel the next day? Are you less or more anxious? So there's that kind of, and in many ways, alcohol is the perfect trap. And as much as you get to that time, certainly for me in the evening, wanting to lower the anxiety, the pressures of the day, having a drink, that doing the trick for an hour, having some sketchy sleep, and then the cycle starts again the next day because you feel more anxious because you had a drink the night before. Therefore, you have to have the drink on the evening to calm the anxiety down, if that's the thing that's kind of suffering with a client. But it's a great question, and every client's different, and every client comes to me with a different reason of why they want to stop drinking.
I chose to drink to numb my pain and numb my pain of dissatisfaction in my life, where things were going in other areas. Instead of thinking through them and being honest with myself and working through the pain, I'd rather just put it away in a closet and just let it simmer. And the closet becomes more and more full at some point. But numbing it, and then it requires more and more daily drinking to be able to keep numbing it. And that dissatisfaction is a huge thing. Not getting the outcomes that you want in life, not getting the situations. And I think for whatever reason people drink, at some level it's an escape. From anxiety, social anxiety, or from their normal daily living. I think the best thing we can do for ourselves is be amongst our own thoughts. There's a great quote that I keep reminding myself of. I had on my wall a long time ago. A man thinking or working is always alone, especially amongst his own thoughts. Henry David Thoreau said that. And we're always alone in our mind. And we almost want to stop that pain, even of being alone. Like, I don't like myself. I'm in my head and whatever situation. I want to cover it up. We want to cover up pain so much. What we don't realize is the pain and the struggle becomes the gift.
Yeah.
Once you process it, that's kind of the neat part of it.
Yeah.
Bob, you're thinking pensively. Your thoughts are going somewhere.
Oh, I'm just going to ask Mike what he uses or what he does to help himself and his clients when it comes to dealing with that being alone and that whole in your head and in your thoughts. Because I mean, that's where I get lost a lot, is in my own thoughts and in my own insecurities and all of that stuff. Once I start not thinking and all that stuff starts piling up, pretty soon I want to, blow. And what are some of the things that you do to for yourself, Mike, and for helping your clients when it comes to all of that stuff just being piled on?
Yeah. And it's really interesting points, isn't it? And I think definitely a catalyst for reaching for that maladaptive coping strategy, I guess. And it's interesting because what we're speaking about is alcohol being the symptom. What's the cause? And it's quite often the cause is that loneliness, or the cause is that anxiety, or that fear of social engagement. So everybody is different, but it's really sort of understanding. And I think, again, this is where skills of counselling, we can go back into a client's life and find out where that actually happened as well. So there may have been something in childhood that had happened that this then becomes a coping mechanism, a negative one, albeit. So I'm not sure if I've kind of answered the question correctly there, but I think there's definitely alcohol is the symptom, is what's the cause. And I guess finding the cause is going to be different for every client.
You don't have a basic strategy that you kind of push people toward?
Not really, because I think the way in which I work is very centered around the client. So it's really understanding, or letting them understand where they're at. And I'm a big believer that rather than be told what we need to do, and there's some great groups out there that we can do that and have that accountability and alignment. But I think certainly for me, in my experience with therapy and coaching, is that ability to find the answers within yourself. And that only comes by your own inquiry, and I guess asking the right questions to the client to help them understand where they're at in that process, what it is that's causing them to want to drink. And it's back to that thing of, we've all lived different lives, we've all had different experiences, we've all had experiences which have driven us to these coping mechanisms. And maybe if we can find them and shine some awareness on why they need to do that, I think awareness is often the first step, being aware of why they do it, and then action can be taken. And there's also a big part on beliefs as well, because that awareness can then change a belief. And I think when we change people's beliefs, that's incredibly powerful, because people can have beliefs that, it's not possible to change, or I can't do this. And maybe it's highlighting some language as well, and offering the client, because there are some simple things. Clients may come up with language that is quite defeatist, or, there might be a lot of I can't, or it's impossible, and really highlighting that and getting their self-talk in such a way that's not going to make it even harder to make that change. I mean, the thing I'm really passionate about is the whole introversion side of things, navigating that social environment, I guess. That's probably what I would ask myself. Because I do get a lot of people reaching out about this, and they don't want to drink, but they feel they have to drink, either be some sort of peer pressure or the ability to be able to fit in. It's such a ubiquitous thing, alcohol, that we go to a party or a social gathering, it's always there. I guess especially in our age range, maybe not in Gen Z, it's changing a bit in the youngsters, but yeah, it's kind of that thing. It's such a big part of our culture. So to be the one that stands out, you've got that pressure of people asking you to drink, and then you've got the pressure on yourself thinking, well, I need to be this other person. And that comes back again to alignment, I think, and being being confident with who you are. And if you're a bit quieter, I'm confident with being the quieter person now in the group. And that's fine. But I think stepping away from alcohol gives you that ability to see the more true person that I am. And I've really enjoyed that process.
Final question I usually ask everybody. How do you want to be known?
I guess first and foremostly kind. And secondly is to be the person that really sort of talked about it's okay to be introvert. It's, and really sort of give people that ability, the person that give people an ability to go to these social engagements and not drink alcohol. I think that whole piece about because I think in society, especially this society, we seem to sort of adore this extroversion, this extroverted type of person. They seem to get more airtime if they shout the loudest. And that I find that incredibly frustrating. I love doing these sort of things because I get a chance to talk about myself, funnily enough. And when I'm coaching and counseling, it's all about the client. So it's great to be able to talk about what I'm doing and say the things I want to say without being kind of cut down, which is often the case in society because of the way we live in this sort of extroverted world.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.